I let my neighbor's friend park in my driveway while they renovated. A month later, I got a fine for unregistered vehicles, and he claimed he lived there. You shouldn't have let him start, my neighbor said coldly. I spoke to the city, and what they told me. I live in a quiet part of Grand Rapids, Michigan. The kind of street where people mow their lawns on Saturdays and wave but don't really talk. I've been in my house for about 12 years. It's not big, just a 2-bedroom ranch with a narrow driveway and a fenced-in backyard. I keep to myself. I'm not the type who throws block parties. But I've always tried to be a decent neighbor. Anna moved in next door 5 years ago. She's about 10 years younger than me. Friendly enough, always seemed stressed. She's a single mom, her daughter Megan must be 10 now. They have a little blue house with a rotting porch that's been falling apart since the day she bought it. In April, Anna told me she was finally getting the house renovated. I said good for her. Over the next week, a bunch of guys started showing up, contractors, electricians, some guy with a sledgehammer who always looked pissed off. Then one morning, she stopped me as I was getting into my car. "Hey, Mike," she said. "Would you mind if one of the guys, Mark, parks in your driveway for a few weeks? My yard's full of tools and the contractors are taking up space." I hesitated. I barely knew her. But she looked tired and a little desperate. "Yeah, that's fine," I said. "As long as he doesn't block me in." She smiled. "He won't." "Thanks so much." That was the start. Mark started showing up every morning around 7. He drove a beat-up maroon van with dents all over the side. Sometimes he stayed until dark. I'd see him eating lunch in the van, sometimes walking over to Anna's house with a plastic bag full of groceries. I figured he was staying there during the job. Didn't ask questions. Just kept minding my business. But then I got home from work one Tuesday and saw a bright orange sticker on his van. Unregistered vehicle. Ticket issued. I squinted at it. My address was printed right below it. At first, I figured it was his problem. I snapped a photo and texted Anna, "Hey, city tagged that van in my driveway. Says it's unregistered. Just a heads up." She didn't reply that night. The next morning, the van was still there. Sticker still on it. That afternoon, I got a letter from the city. $250 fine for harboring an unregistered vehicle on private property. The address on the citation was mine. I was pissed. I walked over to Anna's house that evening. She answered the door while holding a mixing bowl, Megan behind her doing homework at the table. I held up the fine. "This is from the city. They fined me because that guy's van is in my driveway." She didn't look surprised. "Mark lives here now," she said flatly. "You let him park there. That's on you." "Lives here?" "He's working on your house." "What are you talking about?" "He's staying here while he does the job," she said. "It's temporary, but he's here. You let him park there, Mike. You shouldn't have let him start if you weren't okay with it." That line hit hard. Cold. Dismissive. Like I was the idiot for helping. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and walked back to my house. I paid the fine. But it kept eating at me. I felt played. Like I'd stepped into something messy without knowing it. The next day, I called the city's parking enforcement office. If an unregistered car is parked in my driveway and it's not mine, why am I getting fined? The woman on the phone explained it like I was a child. "If it's on your property and we have no reason to believe otherwise, you're responsible. Unless the person can prove they live there, utilities, mail, registration, we assume you're harboring it." That gave me an idea. I drove down to City Hall. I filled out a dispute form, attached a copy of my property tax bill, a copy of my DT utility bill, and a statement: "The owner of the vehicle does not reside at this address. Vehicle is not mine." Fine was improperly issued. A week later, I got a letter. Citation dismissed. No further action required. I felt a small rush of satisfaction. I should have left it at that. But I couldn't. Because every morning, that same van was still parked in my driveway. Anna never asked again. Mark never looked at me. So one Saturday, I waited until Mark pulled in. I walked out the front door and waved him down. He rolled down the window. "Hey. You need to stop parking here." He looked confused. Anna said it was fine. "It's not fine. You're not on my lease. I just got fined for your van. That can't happen again." He nodded slowly. "All right, man. I'll figure something out." That night, the van was gone. For good. But that same evening, I got a text from Anna. Real mature. That was it. Then, a week later, something weird happened. I got a knock on my door from a city code enforcement officer. He said someone filed a complaint, said my house might be operating as a boarding property without a permit. I asked him who filed it. He said they couldn't tell me. But I could guess. The city closed the complaint after they found no evidence. But it shook me up. That was when I decided to dig deeper. If they wanted to play petty, I'd play smarter. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Not my coworkers, not my sister, no one. But I started keeping notes. Every time Mark came by Anna's house after that, I wrote down the day and time. I took pictures, him unloading tools, walking out with food containers, bringing in mail. I figured if she was going to use the word "he lives here" to dodge fines, maybe I could show that she was bending more rules than I realized. Grand Rapids has a few strict codes about rentals and permits, especially in older neighborhoods like ours. If someone's staying in a home that isn't on the lease and isn't family, that's considered a boarder. And Anna's house wasn't registered for that. A few weeks later, I went back to the city clerk's office. I asked some careful questions. "What's the process for reporting unregistered occupants?" The clerk handed me a form. I filled it out right there. Included Mark's name, the license plate from his van, and a typed sheet with all the dates and times I'd tracked. I wasn't doing it for revenge at first. I just didn't like how smug Anna acted. Like I was the idiot. Like she could lie about someone living there and I'd eat the fine for it. About a week later, I saw a car pull up across the street with a city housing inspector inside. He sat there for half an hour, watched the house, wrote things down. 2 days later, Mark's van disappeared completely. Then, Anna started parking on the street instead of her driveway. I figured something must have happened. That's when the letter came to my house. No return address, just my name written in sloppy handwriting. Inside was one page: "You've made a big mistake. Stay out of other people's business." I read it twice. No signature. I called the non-emergency police line and reported it. Officer said they couldn't do much unless a threat was made, but he documented it. After that, things got worse. One morning I woke up to find that someone had dumped used drywall scraps and old food wrappers across the edge of my lawn, right where my driveway meets the curb. Looked like it came from a renovation site. I cleaned it up. Didn't say anything. Next day, someone keyed the side of my car. It was small, but deep. A single line along the back panel. I felt it in my gut. This was all connected. I went back through my security cam footage. Nothing clear, just shadows around midnight. Figures too far from the lens to ID. That night, I sat in my living room with the lights off, watching out the window like an idiot. And sure enough, just before 2 a.m., I saw a figure cross from Anna's yard toward mine. Hoodie. Dark pants. I couldn't see a face. But they stopped near my trash cans, looked around, then walked off. I called the cops again. This time they sent someone. Officer took a report and said he'd circled the block that night. But nothing ever came of it. By now, I was starting to feel like a prisoner in my own home. Every time I pulled into my driveway, I wondered what had been done while I was gone. Every knock on the door made my heart race. Then, one morning, I saw a moving truck outside Anna's house. Mark was loading it. Alone. No contractors, no noise, just him and a bunch of furniture being packed into the back. I stepped out to get the paper and didn't say a word. He looked at me, didn't nod, didn't wave. Just kept packing. By the next day, he was gone. But that wasn't the end. Because a week later, I got a letter from the city. Not about the van. Not about the fine. This one was about a zoning review. Someone had reported me. Claimed I was renting out part of my home to non-family occupants without registration. That I had construction happening on the property without permits. That I had unauthorized business activity. All of it was made up. I didn't even have guests. When the inspector showed up, I walked him through every room. He was polite, checked the garage, looked around the backyard. Asked a few questions. Then he looked at me and said, "Off the record, this kind of thing usually starts when someone's trying to get back at you." I just nodded. I knew exactly who did it. I didn't respond to the zoning notice directly, but I started to make calls. First, I spoke with a lawyer my cousin recommended, one of those no-nonsense types who'd worked in local real estate law for over 20 years. I explained the whole thing, from the van to the fine, the letter, the retaliation. He listened quietly for a while, then asked, "Do you have any proof she filed the report on you?" "No," I said. "But I'm sure it was her." "Then don't go after her directly," he said. "You document everything. Let her bury herself. People like that eventually trip over their own mess." That was the plan. I added more cameras around the house. One above the driveway. Another tucked under the eaves near the backyard. Clear picture, night vision, motion alerts to my phone. Then I waited. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then, late one night, my backyard motion alert pinged. When I checked the footage, I saw someone walking through my yard with a flashlight, around 3 a.m. They came from the direction of Anna's house. They paused near my shed, then turned around and left the way they came. No damage. Nothing missing. But it was enough. I clipped the video, saved it, and filed another police report. The officer came by, watched the footage, and said the same thing again: "It's not enough to press charges. But keep these coming. If it escalates, we'll act." Then something happened I didn't expect. Anna came to my door. It was around 6 in the evening. I saw her through the peephole. I almost didn't answer. When I opened it, she didn't smile. Her hair was a mess. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. She said, "Can we talk?" I didn't move. "About what?" She glanced around. "Mark's been calling me. He says you're trying to get him in trouble with the city." "I didn't do anything except tell the truth," I said. "He said you filed something. About him living here." "I filed a dispute on a fine I didn't deserve. If the city looked into your situation, that's not on me." Her jaw tightened. "You knew what you were doing. I knew you let him use my driveway, lied to the city, and let me take the hit. That's what I knew." She didn't deny it. Instead, she looked down and said, "He wasn't supposed to stay." It got messy. I didn't know what to do. "Yeah? You could have told the truth." She shook her head. "I've got a 10-year-old and a mortgage. I didn't need city inspectors crawling through my life." I stared at her for a long second. Then said, "Then maybe don't involve other people in your mess." She left without another word. For a few days, I thought maybe that was the end of it. Then I got the letter from Mark's lawyer. It was short, just 2 pages. A cease and desist. Claiming I was engaging in a pattern of harassment, and making defamatory statements that had affected his ability to get contractor work in the area. I laughed when I read it. But the lawyer didn't. "This is real," he said. "He's trying to scare you. Don't contact him, don't talk to anyone about him directly. Let me respond." A week later, the lawyer drafted a formal reply. It basically said, "My client has made no public or private claims beyond correcting false records to the city. Any damage to Mr. Xavier's reputation stems from his own actions." We mailed it. Then we waited. I didn't hear anything for a month. And then the real twist came. In late June, I was pulling weeds in the backyard when 2 guys in city vests walked through the alley and stopped behind Anna's fence. One pulled out a camera. The other started taking notes. I watched them quietly from the corner of my yard. After a few minutes, I asked, "Something going on?" One of the guys looked up. "Code enforcement," he said. "We got a report of unlicensed work being done on this property, possible zoning violations, improper disposal, storage issues." Anna's house was finally under full investigation. They were in her backyard for 20 minutes. Snapped pictures of wood piles, dumped plaster, even a generator sitting on the porch. That night, I saw Anna yelling at someone on the phone in her front yard. And I knew things were finally unraveling, for real. A few days after the city inspectors showed up, a big yellow notice appeared on Anna's front door. "Stop work, violation." You could see it from across the street. It was taped right over the middle of her door, and it didn't look temporary. The day after that, the contractors stopped coming. No more hammering at 7 a.m. No vans. No mark. Just silence. I didn't go out of my way to stare, but it was impossible not to notice how fast her house turned into a ghost of a project: half-painted siding, stacks of lumber still sitting in the yard, insulation exposed on one side. That's when I started getting the stares. From other neighbors. From her. People I'd never talked to before suddenly had an opinion. Some nodded at me when I drove past. One guy, 3 houses down, stopped me while I was mowing and said, "Heard you stood up to her." That guy had his van blocking my trash cans for weeks. So I wasn't the only one. Still, I didn't feel good about it. The weird part? Anna didn't yell. She didn't come back to my door. She didn't even look at me when we passed in the driveway. But she started doing something else. She'd sit on her front porch in the evenings, Megan next to her with a tablet or some snack, and she'd just stare. Not for a second, whole minutes. Just sitting there, arms crossed, eyes locked on my house. It made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't explain. I started keeping my curtains closed at night. Felt stupid, but something about the way she looked at me made it hard to relax. Then came the next thing. In early July, I got a call from my insurance company. Someone had submitted an anonymous tip that I might be operating a commercial business from a residential property, which would violate the terms of my policy. I had to schedule a walkthrough with an agent. When he came, I showed him every inch of the place. No tools, no side business, nothing suspicious. Just an old guy with a regular job and a half-dead lawn. The agent apologized and said it was probably just a mistake. But we both knew it wasn't. A week later, I came home to a red soda bottle filled with something that reeked like piss sitting on my porch step. It had no cap. Just sitting there, warm in the sun. That was the moment something clicked. This wasn't just payback anymore. It was harassment. So I bought a cheap trail cam and mounted it across from my porch, half buried in one of the flower beds. A few days later, it caught someone walking up my steps at 1:42 a.m., dropping something, and walking off. The video was blurry, but the walk? The height? The long braid pulled through the back of the hoodie? It was Anna. That same week, the city confirmed that Anna had been issued 3 separate code violations, one for unauthorized construction, one for improper disposal, and one for not having a valid permit for boarders. She'd have to pay the fines or face court. I didn't say a word. I just watched her carry bags of trash to the curb in silence. Her head down. No more porch stairs. Until she slipped another letter into my mailbox. No stamp. Just folded in half and shoved inside. It said, "You ruined everything for a guy who just needed a break. You think you won, but you don't understand what you've started." There was no name, no signature. But taped to the bottom of the note was a photo. A printed phone picture. It showed me walking in my backyard at night, taken from what looked like her upstairs window. It wasn't just creepy. It was a message. And I wasn't going to ignore it anymore. After that photo showed up in my mailbox, everything changed. I stopped feeling like the guy who got dragged into something. I started feeling hunted. I couldn't eat right. I couldn't sleep. Every little sound at night made me check the cameras. Every creak on the porch made me freeze. I printed the photo and brought it to the police station. The officer on duty, same guy from earlier, looked at it and said, "She didn't threaten you. And the photo isn't illegal on its own. But this adds up. If you want to file for a restraining order, this might help." So I did. I filed a report. Added everything. The note. The garbage. The walkthroughs. Even the keyed car and the dried urine bottle. It wasn't much on its own, but together, it painted a picture. I sent copies to my lawyer. He said, "This is the kind of pattern judges notice. If she makes one more mistake, we go full civil action." I didn't even want money. I just wanted her to stop. Then one night, mid-July, I got another motion alert. This time, it wasn't my driveway. It was my backyard camera. And this time, they didn't just look around. They came up to my back door. It was Mark. He was wearing a hoodie, gloves, and what looked like a crowbar tucked into the back of his jeans. He reached for the doorknob. Then something stopped him. Maybe he saw the camera light blink. Maybe he heard something. He turned around and ran. Fast. Disappeared over the fence into the alley. I called 911. The cops arrived quick. I showed them the footage. Gave them Mark's full name. Description. Told them the whole story. They took it seriously this time. They pulled up his record. Found 2 old misdemeanors, nothing huge, but enough to open a case. They said if he stepped on my property again, they'd arrest him for attempted break-in. That night, I didn't sleep. But I didn't feel scared. I felt done. Done with letting people drag me into their garbage. Done letting guilt make me quiet. Done pretending being nice always worked. The next morning, I filed for a no-contact order. I submitted a public nuisance report for Anna's house. And I scheduled a meeting with the city attorney's office to explore civil charges. But before any of that could move forward, before I even got confirmation of the restraining order, someone broke into my garage. Nothing valuable was taken. Just one thing. The security camera's SD card. I never got the card back. No arrest, no charges. Just a hole where the proof used to be. And now, every time I hear a noise at night, I check the cameras, but I still wonder if someone's watching from a window I can't see. I used to think helping out made me a good neighbor. Now I just keep my gate locked and my head down. Some things don't end. They just settle in and stay quiet until the next time you say yes to the wrong person.